Through the crack in the graveyard wall, I could see clearly what had grabbed Ted. It was ageless and genderless, its skin as pale as the harvest moon. Whether the dark rags it was wrapped in were cloth, skins, or both, I couldn't say. Its proportions were stretched and wrong, but its dark blue eyes were human. Ted's legs kicked the air uselessly as the pale thing's jaw distended, lowering down past its chest. It held my friend just above the toothless black pit of its wide-open mouth, and swallowed him whole. I clamped a hand over my mouth to hold down my scream. The thing folded its freakishly long fingers over its distended belly and belched. A little bit of color, a little bit of life, seemed to flow back into its dead-looking skin. "Does anything taste so wonderful as the soul of a frightened child?" it asked the silent forest. "Surely not." It paused, sniffing the air. "Oh, there's a live one around here somewhere." To my horror, it began walking toward me, its rags whispering as they dragged through the grass. "Ah, there you are, among the tombstones. Come on out, little one. There's no point in hiding now." My blood ran cold. How had it known where I was? Trembling, I got to my feet. "If you come quietly, it'll be over before you know it." The thing's voice was insidious. It seemed to come from all directions, wriggling into my ears like a wicked worm. "Otherwise, I might have to turn into a raven and peck out your eyes, or a wolf to slurp up your scrawny pink guts, or a deer to stomp you under my hooves. Would you like that, As it spoke, it transformed into the animal as it described, and then into a hideous combination of all three. All the while, its dark blue eyes observed me, waiting to see what I would do. I suddenly realized that it wanted me to run. It wanted me to panic and flee the graveyard because it couldn't come inside itself. "You can't come in here," I said, more to myself than to the prowling thing beyond the wall. "I don't know why, but you can't." The pale, almost human thing flew at me. It came as close as it could get to the other side of the cemetery wall, but didn't cross it. "You can't stay in there forever, little one. Sooner or later, you'll have to drink and eat. You might as well get it over with." "People are looking for me. They know where I am," I shouted, and realized that it was half true. If I wasn't home by sunset, Miss Mortimer would notice that I was missing. She'd come for me, and then she'd deal with this monster. "That's fine, little one. Wonderful, in fact. I'll just eat them too. But if you do as I ask, I won't hurt your friends." The thing pressed its face against the invisible barrier that separated us and opened its toothless mouth impossibly wide. Its breath smelled like death. Doubt clouded my heart. Would Miss Mortimer really be able to defeat this thing, which could devour souls and transform into wild animals? I hoped she could, but I wasn't sure. The sun sank lower in the sky. The thing's shadow stretched behind it, long and vulture-like. I looked helplessly around for a way out of my predicament, but saw none. Meanwhile, the thing kept on whispering. Its awful insinuations were getting harder and harder to ignore. The air cooled. The dusk bathed the hilltop cemetery in purple light. I was just beginning to wonder if Miss Mortimer was coming for me after all, when I heard her calling my name. The thing's mouth twisted into a nightmarish imitation of a smile. It waved its hand and spoke an impossible word. A ripple passed through the air. "Miss Mortimer!" I shouted. "Hey, Miss Mortimer, Eliza! I'm up here!" I yelled and jumped, but Miss Mortimer just kept walking through the woods, looking from side to side and calling my name. "She can't see or hear us," the thing sneered. "She can't even see the graveyard. To her, this is just the grassy hilltop. Don't you see, little one? You've only made things worse for yourself." The thing was lying. It had to be. I waved and screamed myself hoarse, but it didn't make any difference. Just as it had said, Miss Mortimer walked past the cemetery as though it wasn't even there. Then she was gone, just another shadow in the forest. The moon rose through the sky, but the pale thing didn't move. It just stared at me, like a buzzard waiting for its prey to die. I sat down and cried. Maybe the thing was right. Maybe I should just get it over with. A pebble flew out from the woods and clattered beside me. Then another. I glimpsed two moonlit, familiar faces among the trees. Johann and Abigail. They could see me. The pale monstrosity in front of me noticed my excitement. It looked around suspiciously, and I knew I didn't have much time. "Miss Mortimer, Miss Eliza Mortimer, who lives in the cottage across the creek. Won't you come and help me? I know you would, if you knew where I was," I called in a sing-song voice. Johann and Abigail looked at each other, nodded to me, and slunk away into the forest. They'd gotten the message. "No one can help you, little one. No one," the thing rasped. I crossed my arms smugly. "That's what you think." When Miss Mortimer hadn't appeared a few hours later, however, my confidence began to fade. Johann and Abigail had always been scared of adults, and after seeing the horror that stalked through the woods, I could understand why. But what if they were afraid of Miss Mortimer too? What if they couldn't reach her for some reason? The eastern sky was growing brighter when I saw a second dark figure approaching through the woods. A torch made of funny-smelling herbs burnt in its hand, and Johann and Abigail walked behind it, leaving no trace of their passage. It was Miss Mortimer. In the cold morning light, her face was almost as pale as my captor's. She waved a smoking bundle and another rippled past through the air. Her eyes went wide. She could see me. "You came!" I cried out, relieved. But Miss Mortimer wasn't smiling. "Let him go, Matilda," she ordered the pale thing in front of me. It whipped around to face her, its dark blue eyes full of recognition and hate. "Who are you to command me, Eliza?" Like a bird of prey unfurling its wings, the monster called Matilda drew itself up to its full height. It was almost twice as tall as Miss Mortimer, but she didn't back down. "Don't tell me you think that little stick of sage will keep you safe," Matilda laughed, and its laughter became a wind that made its rags whip around, drove clouds across the pre-dawn sky, and snuffed the smoldering herbs in Miss Mortimer's hand. The darkness deepened. "I searched everywhere for you," Miss Mortimer murmured. "I studied those old books of yours, learned your ways. I never imagined I'd find you back here, of all places. It is here that I left this world, and it is here that I returned to it. Time has no meaning in the places I've been. Do you know what I had to do to survive there, Eliza? Do you know what I had to do to come back?" "I can't even imagine. But the soul of that little boy, Matilda. How could you? How many others were there? How many more will there be?" Miss Mortimer's hands had balled into fists, and I was surprised to see tears in her eyes. "The person I loved would never have stolen the lives of others just to stay alive herself." As Miss Mortimer spoke, I noticed that Matilda's hands were moving. Those long, pale fingers extracted something from inside those ragged sleeves, something like a small brass dart. "Look out! She's got something!" I screamed. My shout died in my throat as Matilda spun and hurled the dart into my chest. "No!" Miss Mortimer ran to me, Johann and Abigail at her heels. The last thing I saw before my vision faded was a great black bird taking flight beside the cemetery gate. "Are you too sure you want to do this? If you do, there's no going back." Time has passed. I couldn't have said how much. Miss Mortimer's voice sounded distant, as though I was deep underwater. I was lying in my bed back in the cottage. But, how strange. I couldn't move. I couldn't feel anything. Not even my own breath. Was I? Miss Mortimer had made a ring around me with some kind of colored powder. Her red notebook was open in front of her, and to her right, Johann and Abigail stood holding hands. "We're sure," Abigail nodded. "I was getting bored with the creek anyway. I reckon it was about time I moved on, too, and if it helps out our friend." "All right, then, if you're ready." Miss Mortimer nodded, then wrinkled her brow. I knew that look. It was the one that meant, "I really hope this works." She began to chant. As she did, Johann and Abigail became brighter and brighter, until they seemed to be made of light. They reached out to touch my chest, and their light dimmed, then disappeared. I felt a loud, sudden pounding inside my chest. It took me a minute to realize it was my own heartbeat. "Johann? Abigail?" I gasped. "Your friends have moved on." Miss Mortimer leaned over and brushed my sweat-soaked hair away from my forehead. "I don't know if they're happier where they are now, but I'd like to think so." "And Matilda?" I whispered. "Gone. for now. But I don't think this place is safe any longer. It's a shame. We had such happy memories here. A shadow passed over Miss Mortimer's face. This life on the road is turning out to be more dangerous than I thought. There's still so much I don't understand, you know? Might be better off back with your parents. No, I shook my head. I don't care if it's dangerous. I'm coming with you. Miss Mortimer tried to hide her smile, without much success. I tried to get out of bed, but slid backwards immediately. Matilda's poisoned dart had left me as weak as a newborn. Miss Mortimer took out a small piece of chalk and placed it in my hand. Rest. We'll be on the road again, before you know it.